Lewin here at GarageBand and Beyond. Welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about acoustic guitars and really the big difference in the recording process between the Gibson, the Martin guitar and the Gibson guitar. Sorry, I was looking at the Gibson. And you know, you could boil this down to a little more generic terms as dreadnought versus smaller bodied guitars of any sort, really. So let's start with the Gibson because, you know, I've been listening to music for 37 years, and especially in the last like 15 or so, I'd say I've definitely heard the sound of the Gibson acoustic guitar becoming a lot more present in contemporary mainstream rock and roll. Actually, you know, I wouldn't even limit it to that. I'd say all over the place. You know, if you're listening to bands like the Foo Fighters or Wilco or Dawes or, I don't know, any band right now, chances are they're playing a Gibson, sounding at least, a Gibson guitar. And pretty much in all those bands I just listed, they use Gibsons for recording. You know, there's just something about this tone. You know, that sort of that narrow, boxy, a little bit nasally even out of this guitar, I think sometimes. Something about that tone really does cut through a mix really nicely. And I don't spend a lot of time EQing this guitar very much when I record my Gibson, especially when there's lots of, you know, when there's drums and bass and other guitar parts and keyboard parts and lots of voices, all that kind of stuff. Having that sort of big sounding natural acoustic guitar isn't really necessary anymore. And using, you know, the dreadnought, I've said this before, it becomes overkill, really. You end up taking away a lot of the things that make the tone such a good thing. So that's why something like a Gibson or a smaller bodied guitar, you know, obviously here in the waist and here in the hips, it's a much much smaller guitar than your typical dreadnought. And those are the things that sort of, some of the things that contribute to the tonal differences. Obviously the wood and the strings and all the stuff, but smaller body, bigger body, you know, that's what it can boil down to. Now the Martin guitar, obviously, or the dreadnought style guitar, is obviously the king of acoustic guitar world. Everybody, everywhere has a dreadnought. And there's a very good reason, because they sound awesome all by themselves, you know. If you're just sitting around and wanting to play a guitar, you know, this acoustic guitar, I mean, this is an HD Martin HD 28. I promise it's a Martin. The label actually burned off in a fire. But it is an HD 28. So it has the scalloped bracing, which does make it a little bit more bassy than your typical dreadnought style acoustic. You know, it has a much, I don't know, it's more complete, more balanced, more soft. The lows are really present, the highs are really present and shimmery. You know, the Gibson is not very deep sounding. The Martin is. So if you're somebody who's like recording just voice and guitar, for example, dreadnought really is going to be the best way to go. And always, always, always use a microphone on your guitar. Don't plug it in if you don't have to. You want a good acoustic guitar sound, don't plug it in, please. I get this email all the time, just put a microphone on it. So anyway, if you're a singer-songwriter, definitely dreadnought is probably a good way to go. If you're a folk artist, if you're, you know, somebody that plays like southern rock maybe, or blues. Well, no, not blues. I'd say blues for Gibson. Sorry, I'm getting confused here. Folk music, country music, certain types of like folk rock or, you know, classic rock sounding, definitely the Martin. These tend to become a little thinner, actually, when you end up trying to EQ them in the recording process. When I hear a Martin in a big mix, you know, with drums, bass, keyboards, all that stuff, I typically think, wow, that Martin sounds kind of thin for a Martin, you know. But what engineers and myself included try to do is we really just try to get the the shimmer out of a Martin guitar. Whereas, you know, in the case of the Gibson, I'd say that the tone that I just end up getting is probably a little more complete. But since a Gibson is so much more mid-heavy, you know, you don't end up like with the Martin. I'm always trying to like put that back in there, remove a lot of the low end. I'm trying to get it to cut through the mix. If it's a complicated mix, if it's a, you know, thick mix, whereas the Gibson doesn't have to do that. So, you know, this video is, I don't know, is it a lesson or is it just like a open discussion, food for thought kind of thing? Feel free to leave your comments below, because I'm sure you guys all have interesting viewpoints on this debate. I just wanted to sort of, you know, give you something to think about. As budding engineers, it's important to listen to your favorite music and try to identify the instruments that are being used if these are the recordings that you like and you would like to emulate in your own home recording studio. I always say it, authenticity is king. You know, no MIDI guitar or MIDI keyboard will sound better than, you know, my actual guitars and my Hammond keyboard or my Fender Rhodes or any of that stuff. If you want it to sound like those real recordings, you got to get the real stuff somehow. Now, you don't have to go out and buy Martin and Gibson, obviously. You can borrow, or you can just, you know, get a nice dreadnought sized guitar or a nice, you know, bluesy, smaller body guitar. Parlor guitars, if you don't know, are really great. I love recording parlor guitars. They sound more like this, more of a boxier, nasally tone, but great for recording. But I don't want you to think I don't like recording my Martin, because I do absolutely love this for certain applications. When the mixes are more simple, I will absolutely always call on my Martin. When it's a big complicated mix, I'm most likely going to call on my Gibson. So that's it, you guys. Just a little bit of stuff for you guys to think about when it comes to recording acoustic guitars. Please sign my mailing list down below. There's a link for that. I'm giving free stuff away every month. And yes, I will be telling you what you're, you know, eligible to win. I'll be telling you that next week, I think, is what I've been told. So that's it, you guys. Have a great day, and I will see you next week. Later.